Well, thank you for joining us. All these lovely people coming on into the webinar. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Welcome. My name's Bridie, and I will be your host and moderator tonight for the fourth installment of Improv Theatre Sydney Rant Academy. Before I begin tonight, I'd like to just take a second to acknowledge that I'm speaking to you all from unceded Gadigal land, and I'd like to pay my respects to elders past and present and emerging, and I'd like to extend that respect to the traditional owners of the land, wherever it is that you are watching from. I feel very lucky that even in the midst of these crazy times, we can all connect. And yes, to everybody, wherever you are, which is mostly Melbourne and Sydney and a few from New Zealand, we're all in lockdown. So sending lots of love and strength to everybody today. Hello, welcome. Okay, so we're going to get into it. You can see three wonderful, beautiful guests with me tonight. We've got Amanda, Buckley, Patti, Stiles, and Susie, Youssef. Hello.
G'day, g'day.
G'day,
Hello.
g'day. Yes, it's a Victoria and New South Wales Rant Academy edition. Very excited. And I will introduce these wonderful, beautiful speakers as we go. But first of all, to everybody watching, thank you for joining us. If you have joined us before, you'll know that Rant Academy, apart from being my one reason a week to get out of my pajamas / activewear, really exists just as a fun kind of safe space for us to work on our improv theory while we're in lockdown. We obviously can't do face-to-face workshops, so we're taking the time to kind of delve into the craft in a theoretical way and tussle with some really fun ideas. I also wanted to mention that if you have missed any of the editions of Rant Academy so far, they all exist on the Improv Theatre Sydney YouTube page. So you can check that out. Give it a rewatch if you were there the first time. There's some very good improv lessons in those editions, but also just some great life lessons. So feel free to check those out. What else do I need to tell you? What other housekeeping have I got to tell you? Oh, yes. You will see the chat function down below. Feel free to jump on in like Tracy just has. Hello, Tracy. If you want to have your hilarious sassy chat visible to everyone, you need to change that in your settings because the default is that it just comes to the four of us, which we love. But feel free to share your quips with everybody else. And you will also see the Q&A function down the bottom of your screen. As our speakers rant about their topics tonight, you can chuck in questions into that box anytime and I will keep track of them. So after we've heard from all of our speakers, we'll jump into a bit of a conversation and tease out some of their ideas. So it'll be really fun. Yeah, apart from that, I think that's really all the housekeeping. Each speaker has 5-ish minutes to have a rant or a whinge or to gently serenade us if they so choose. Fingers crossed. Amanda, knowing your love of musical improv, it might happen. But
quick, Liam, get the clarinet. Get the clarinet.
So each speaker can do with their 5 minutes whatever it is that they want, and then yeah, we'll get into some excellent chat about it after that. So I think that's everything I need to say. I'm very excited to have these three exceptionally talented speakers tonight. We're going to kick off with Patti. Patti is an improviser, actor, director, teacher, author, playwright. The list goes on. She's done so many things, and very recently, as in how recently, Patti? As in this month? You've
Saturday.
Patti has released a brand new book called Improvise Freely, which kind of cracks open some of the big improv. Oh, look, someone's posted a link to it. The book kind of, you might have heard Jim, who was on Rant Academy a couple of weeks ago, mentioned it. It cracks open some of the big improv questions, like, is yes and all it's cracked up to be? All the rules that we're taught about not asking questions and always naming each other. The book kind of looks at some of those things and teases them out in a really fun way. Patti has taught and performed all over the world. She trained with Keith Johnston, who you might be familiar with as the creator of theatre sports. And I saw this and I was very impressed. The Canadian press has given her the title of Queen of Improvisation, which is very impressive. So tonight, the Queen of Improvisation, Patti Stiles, is going to rant on the topic, the systemization of improv is killing the form. Over to you, Patti.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having all of us. And if I could say on behalf of Amanda and myself that we'd like to pay our respects to the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people of the Kulin Nation, whose unceded lands we live and work on. So thank you. All right. Everybody get ready. Get your boxing gloves out. Your fingers ready to fight and argue with me. Bring it on. The systemization of improvisation is killing the form. And instead of artists and poets, inventors and creators, improvisers are becoming predictable sheep and follow the leader lemmings. I am talking about systems, organized or established procedures that improvisers follow because they were told to do it. Often this told is hidden behind the nicer word taught, but teaching inspires thought and invites exploration and debate. If we are taught through a procedure of running through the same system without allowing ideas to be challenged or exploring the opposite possibilities, then we weren't taught, we were told. We've been conditioned in thought and action. With almost 40 years experience, I have seen a lot of shows all over the world. And in an art form where anything can happen, I keep seeing the same things again and again and again. Modern day improvisation was born from post-war anarchists, free love hippies exploring mind-altering drugs, critics of regimented education who pushed back against censorship and societal views of what was acceptable art. It was born in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, as was theater of the oppressed and theater of the absurd. It was new, it was alternative, it was exciting. Today, it has become mainstream. It has transitioned from punk to pop. Why? Because people value success over exploration and certainty over chaos. With success, certainty, and fun as the new holy trinity, organizations create structures preaching, here is how to do it, preferring to follow popular trends instead of forging new paths. Improvisation is not something you master. It is not finite. It is an art form that you continue to explore and evolve in whatever direction or style inspires you. Systems of how to do it replace the exploration of how can we do it. For example, the back line. Does it help or hinder the show? How does the back line impact the audience's experience? Are there other ways? Personally, I find the back line visually messy. Every time a player in the back line moves, it catches my eye and removes me, however momentarily, from the scene at play. I don't lose myself in the fantasy because the back line reminds me of the reality. And as a player, I feel disconnected. I can't see the onstage player's eyes to see their joy or their fear. My role as an improviser is to accept all offers. So why make it difficult for me to see all the offers being made? But the back line, which probably started as a solution to playing in small spaces, has become a system that countless improvisers do without thought, without question. It's become systematic behavior. As a side note, many European festivals perform in theater spaces with wings and backstage areas, and it's actually rare to see a show with a back line. But when systems replace knowledge and free thinking, we have a problem. I asked Joe Bill, a student of Del Close's, what do you think Del would think of the Herald today? And Joe said, he would probably say, why the fuck are you still doing this? I was also told that Del objected to the Herald being written down. Anecdotally, he said, once you write it down, it will kill the form. Today, a quick search on the net, and one will find graphs and flowcharts of how a Herald is supposed to be done. Flowcharts for pretending. Del said in an interview, a Herald is an organic form exploring the chaos of free association. Listen to the heart of the work. Organic, chaos, free association. Words like structure and flowchart are sharp knives plunged into that beating heart, which indeed kills it, or at least severely wounds it. Finding the consistent way to always do it right is not the joy for the seekers, the curious, the artists, and the poets. This is the need of the afraid and the fearful who want to create reliable systems for consistent, successful outcomes. And if that is your aim, then improv is not your game. Yet, here we are trying to structure chaos instead of igniting it. Herald is not the Holy Grail, the only form, or the form everyone learns. With love and respect to Kale, I don't agree that everything is a fucking Herald. There were improvisation shows being performed before the Herald came to life. For example, Nichols and May, a comedy duo in the 50s and 60s, reportedly used Stanislavski techniques. And genre shows are not purely organic because improvisers are trying to replicate and encapsulate an existing style. Within their work, there's organic play, but it's not completely and purely organic. And besides, if improv has become one thing, then effectively we have killed it. So Kale and I may disagree. Great! We still enjoy playing together and hanging out. Let's have a variety of views, rich debate, diversity, and respect. Systems created around one ideology, which ignores or excludes others, breeds sheep and lemmings. Another example, impro or improv. Improv was not in the Australian, British, or Western Canadian lexicon until the 2000s. Why? Because impro is British English and improv comes from American English. Improvisation, improvisation. It's simply where the beat is. Having a V does not make it more legit. It simply makes it more American and connects it to that tradition, which is fine if that's what you want and that's what you choose. This is not Game of Thrones. There is space in King's Landing for everyone and all their dragons. Today's improvisers are not anarchists and artists because the systemization of organic chaos and free association has turned them into dutiful replicators. Break the system. Be the anarchist. Ask yourself, why am I still fucking doing this? And try something else. That's it.
Patti, what a call to arms. I love that. Thank you so much. You can see there is a lot of love for this in the chat. Punk prov, let's start it. Look, you got a dragon emoji. That's huge.
I don't want to go next.
Lynette wrote down flowcharts for pretending, which I wrote down too. I love that as a phrase. I think there's so much food for thought that you've given to us there about the way we approach something which is meant to be so playful. So I'm really excited to get into that a little bit later. I reminded everyone, feel free to to put your questions in the chat there. And Jennifer's just said that V thing is so interesting. New Zealand calls it improv, but most of our best known history is theatre sports, i.e. Keith. Also, I call it improv for such a long time and I felt really self-conscious about it when everybody else called it improv. So thank you for clearing that up. That was very interesting.
Hi, Jen, by the way. Hi.
Yes, that was great. I feel very inspired. So thank you very much, Patti. We're going to go to our second speaker now. So Amanda Buckley has trained and performed and taught with lots of amazing people and institutions, including Improv Australia, Improv Melbourne, the big hoo-ha, Impromptunes, Spontaneous Broadway, and our very own Improv Theatre Sydney when the borders open and she can get to New South Wales. Amanda has done heaps of festivals, and I learnt from reading your bio, Amanda, that you were part of the first Aussie troupe to perform at the Del Close Marathon in New York, which is really cool. And that very same year, Amanda won the Cranston Cup. So a bit of an overachievement. Cheers, gals.
The third speaker is also part of that troupe. That
I love that. Wonderful. That's a good combo right there. One of Amanda's biggest loves is musical improv, and she teaches heaps of it. Amanda created a show a few years ago called Eurovision, the improvised song contest, which I was lucky enough to be part of, and it was one of the most joyous onstage experiences I've had. And I think Yeah, that's a key thing about Amanda's play. I can totally attest to her musical improv powers. She quickly became one of my favorite improvisers to watch on stage when I moved to Sydney, because she's so brilliant and theatrical and has so much energy. And that's very in line with her topic tonight, which is show up for the show. Over to you, Amanda.
Hi everyone. Right, I'm going to pull up my Word doc on screen. Quite nervous to follow Patti, because I'm probably telling people what to do. Sorry, but look, for the record, these are, of course, my own very strong opinions, and they're potentially quite unpopular, but this is a rant, and rant I shall. I am specifically referring to shows where the audience have paid money. My personal view, though, is that this approach should be applied to all shows and jams and rehearsals. But for specificity, let's narrow it down to shows where people have paid to be there. Now, I know that the majority of audiences are other improvisers or improv students. We can all surely agree that after a few years, your non-improv friends and even your family probably don't come to many shows anymore. And there is a reason for that. Why would they want to hang out at a party that they clearly haven't been invited to? Yeah, that's a bit of a truth bomb. Think about it, people. Truth bomb. Boom. Thanks, Steve. Why would anyone want to spend their money to see you making a bunch of in-jokes that they can't really hear because you haven't warmed up your voice, or your back is turned, or they're never going to get them anyway, because the reference is back to a jam in 2019 where, remember, Jono turned up half an hour late because he was eating a Subway sandwich because he locked himself out of the house again. He didn't get to make lunch, and then he just farted meatball sub farts for an hour. Do you remember that? Yeah, exactly. Show up for the show. Someone, believe it or not, in your audience is seeing improv for the first time. They chose you. They booked a ticket. They got off their lounge, they got dressed, they called a cab, an Uber, they rode their bike, they caught the bus, they paid for parking, whatever. They got there on time. They spent their money on the ticket, probably bought some drinks. And you know what? Maybe they had dinner too. And you know what? Maybe they paid for a babysitter. They could have had a night in with their mates, potluck dinner. They're fun. They're great. They could have gone to the pub for a bit of trivia. I love that. But no, they're taking a massive risk, and they chose you, and they showed up. So now, people, it's your turn. For starters, let's try looking the part. Yeah? Maybe show them that you want to be there. And I don't mean that you have to dress up real fancy or wear a full face of makeup or anything like that. But, unless you want to, and I think that's actually quite lovely. It's a good chance for Olympian and a new hairdo. But here is a note. I don't want to see your knees. Neither does the audience. Stop wearing shitty board shorts or your dirty, stinky t-shirt just because it's improv and it's cool not to give a shit. Stop wearing outfits where the audience spend the whole time worried that you might have a nip slip or a flash of your gash. They don't want to see it. Show the audience some flippin' respect. And here's a quick note. In your audience, yeah, there are some students. Now they're watching you and they are learning from you. So model the behavior you want to see. Respect your fellow performers and respect the call time. No one wants to be spending their pre-show prep time worrying about whether Jono is late because he's locked himself out again. That's a callback. It's a weak one, but there it is. Also, put on some deodorant. Yes, I said it. Respect your fellow performers. Now, look, we all know that there is no guarantee that every show will be the best show, but that's not on the audience for that, okay? That's on us. There's no point in saying, oh, the audience had weird energy or, they just weren't into it. No, that's on us. Give your audience the best chance of loving your show and treat yourselves like you're professionals. Think about your voice. It is the biggest thing that you use on stage apart from your body. So keep it healthy. Warm it up even before you get to the venue. And here's a crazy thing that a really famous improviser tore me to shreds about, but screw him. Learn some flippin' stagecraft. Guess what? This is nothing. This is something. This is nothing. This is something. You could be having the performance of a lifetime, but nobody's going to give a shit if they can't hear it or see it. Yeah. Okay. I'm passionate and I lost my pace. I haven't finished, but thank you very much for the clap. I'm loving it. Yes, fuck the Raz. Hey, Buckers, that's my boyfriend, Liam, not Raz. Never even met the guy. Okay. So I also used to think, by the way, that because I worked with amazing people and I continue to do so, and I trust them implicitly, that it will be okay for me to think to myself, you know what, if I have a bad night or I'm not that into it, it's okay because I know they will bring it. But no, that is not good enough. My job is to bring it every time. I will be on time. I will be warmed up. I will look the part. I will leave my shit at the venue door because I'm a professional and I have a job to do. What shit do you mean, Amanda? Oh, your emotional baggage. No one came to see that, okay? They came to escape their own shit. And I have entered a contract, with that audience. And if I cannot hold up my end of the contract, then I need to be replaced. Just for that show, I need to call it like any job. If I can't do my job, I need to call that in. It's not fair on the audience and it is not fair on my colleagues. I'm also very aware that for the main part, most performers of improv are not getting paid for these shows. I do get that. We should be, but we're not. But that should not mean that we treat our audiences any different because we're not earning sweet corporate dollars at those shows. If you want to be a professional, then act like a professional and show up for the show. Thank you.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen, sister.
I also must know I've been guilty of all those things in the past, but I have learned.
That's all we can
Just in
ask for.
case anyone says you were late one time and farted meatball subs.
We've all farted meatball subs, but
We
whether
have.
or not we can learn from that experience is a question. Look, I said we'd wait until the Q&A, but there's a specific question that's come through for Amanda. What's nothing and what's something again? Could you just show us one more time?
Oh, yeah. Okay. It's rule number 1 of any stage performance. This is nothing. This is something.
Oh,
Okay.
I loved it. It's stunning.
Susie knows all about the triple threat position as well.
That was fantastic. And look, you can see it's all going off in the chat. A lot of truth bombs dropped, particularly for Jono. Jono needs to think long and hard about his actions there.
He's really funny, but no.
No, I think that was fantastic. You also reminded me that my drama teacher, Ms. Byerworth, when I was like 11 and we did our very first ever play, on our first rehearsal, she pulled us all into the theatre and was like, okay, first thing you need to know, because I know this is the first play that many of you have ever done, the most important rule is theatre. And me, tiny little 11-year-old wannabe thespian, was like, here it is, here's the secret. She said, first thing, always wear deodorant and always wear more than you think, especially right now because you're all hitting puberty. And if you don't wear it, you're not in the show. So it's always been burned into my brain. So I love that you said that. And I think even as adults, it's a very, very good reminder for us all. So thank you. A lot of good lessons in there, Amanda.
You're very welcome.
All right. We have one more speaker tonight, and then we'll get into some questions. All right. So our final speaker tonight is the sublime Susie Youssef. Don't even know where to begin. She's a comedian, actor, writer, improviser, presenter. Susie has written, performed, and produced comedy for stage, for radio, for television, all across Australia. She has crushed the festival circuit with her excellently titled shows, it must be said, in Melbourne, Sydney, Edinburgh, London. She's also a regular on main stages across Australia. Just recently, she performed in the Appleton Ladies Potato Race for South Australia Theatre Company. She's performed seasons for Melbourne Theatre Company, Sydney Theatre Company, and Griffin. You can currently catch her as one of the regular co-hosts and correspondents on Network 10's The Project, as well as on Rosehaven on ABC. And very soon, you will see her co-hosting the new Channel 10 epic crafting and DIY competition, Making It Australia. Also, she's my housemate, which is not in your official bio, which is weird. It's not here. Don't know.
Isn't it? That is weird. Yeah.
That's very strange. Feels like it should be leading at the top there. Anyway, the point is, Susie is incredible. And tonight, we're going to hear some wonderful lessons. Listen, you know enough but you don't know everything. Here we go. Susie, Youssef, over to you.
Thank you, Bridie Connell, housemate extraordinaire. Just before I start, I have learned from all three of the women on this panel. They have shaped me as a person and as an improviser, and I'm so grateful to be in their presence tonight. When Bridie Connell asked me if I would do Rant Academy, I had severe reservations, which was very obvious to her. And I think that in the time that we are hearing this and speaking about improv, it's the trickiest times in the history of forever. So that has definitely influenced what I have written and the way I have written it. And that's enough excuses, and let's just fucking do this. Okay. I've already got a caveat at the beginning. Let's go. Let me start by saying I don't really know anything about anything, except that I'm definitely prone to exaggeration. I feel like I know even less now than when I first started improvising in 2004, which was 187 years ago. And at the same time, I know that I know a lot of things, and there are heaps of things I know that I don't know. There are no less than a million voices in my head all the time, but there are three voices that serve me both when I improvise and in general everyday life. And before I kick this off properly, I need you to know that I love improv so much. Improv is life, improv is magic. My philosophy on life and improv are pretty much the same. I found my tribe when I found improv, but the longer you do it, the more noise there is. So here are the three voices that I listen to that help me. First voice says, listen. The second voice says, you know enough. And the third voice says, but you don't know everything. So see the first voice for guidance. This might sound freaking basic, but listening helps with every aspect of improv and life. You all know this, but listening to my scene partner is saying yes to my scene partner. It says, I've heard you. It says, I'm so grateful that you, my scene partner, is here because all the answers are in you, my scene partner. Before this scene started, it didn't exist, and now it does. And there's no template in the ether, no predetermined brief for how this scene will or should go. You're an adult human being standing on stage with another adult human being showing us what happens when these two minds meet in this moment. If you're listening, you're killing it. But sometimes you're listening and you hear something like a suggestion or a line of dialogue, and you go immediately to the thought, I don't know enough about this. I can't do this scene. I don't have the required knowledge. I have done so many workshops where students sit back or freak out when they hear something that they assume everyone knows enough about but them. Fuck that noise. And listen to the voice who gently reminds you, the second voice that says, you know enough, because you know enough. You are enough. Jill Bernard says, when you pull up at a set of lights, you look into the car next to you. Why? Because we're already fascinated by each other. Oh, but I don't watch samurai movies. Yeah, but you know enough. Have you ever walked past a samurai movie poster in your whole life? Have you ever overheard someone talking about anything to do with samurais? Well, then you know enough. And even if you know literally nothing about samurais, you can be in a scene about samurais, because in that moment, if you're listening, you and your scene partner can make shit up. You know enough to be in this scene. You're a co-pilot in this scene. It is going where you take it. So return to the voice, the first voice, with confidence, with a metaphorical permission slip if you need that in your hand, and go back to listening to your scene partner. If you get in your head about this shit, then you're not listening. And even if the scene sucks ass, you showed up and you listened, and you weren't a chicken shit observer of a scene that you could have been in. And next time you'll know more, because now you've been in a scene about a samurai, or because you went home and you looked it up, because that's also a diligent way to grow your knowledge base, and it's irrelevant, but let's just continue. Either way, play. That's what this is about. Keep playing. Improv isn't practiced in theory. It's created over and over again in practice. You don't have a finite number of ideas or thoughts about topics. You are a dynamic human being who absorbs different ideas for characters, stories, dialogue, setting every single day of your life, if you listen. Viola Spolin says, everyone can act, everyone can improvise. We learn through experience and experiencing, and no one teaches anyone anything. You are ready for anything because you know enough, but you don't know everything. So don't be a lazy asshole who stops listening. Listen and disagree. Listen and learn. Listen and feel validated because, oh, this idea sits well with me. We don't have to agree with the choices that others make in improv or in life. But if you sign up to this, listening is the minimum. You don't have to like everyone, and you can absolutely get angry at the state of things because this will help you discover what needs attention in your own play and your own life. It doesn't have to become bitterness. The antidote to bitterness is play. Did you have fun? Well, fucking good, because that's the point. If you're not having fun, investigate what's stopping you from having fun. Listen to yourself. Be compassionate to the stage that you are at. Listen and be kind to the people around you, but most importantly to yourself. As I said before, I have been taught by the best teachers and had the best scene partners. And I started writing this rant because I wanted to empower new improvisers to show up and perform even when you're scared. But learning isn't a linear process. So really, I'm writing this for all improvisers, and mostly I'm writing it for myself. I am still terrified every time I perform. I have done all the right things in scenes and they have sucked, and I've done all the wrong things and they have killed. I don't know anything about anything, but I do know that I am enough. Thank you.
That was so beautiful. Thank you, Susie. Oh,
Yes. Ah.
yes.
To you all. To you all.
To you all.
Thank you to my 3 life coaches who happened to be talking about improv tonight on a Zoom webinar. That was fantastic. Thank you so much, Suze. I feel, after all 3 of those speeches, I feel very inspired, a call to action, and also just like I've got, I also exhaled at the same time, which is quite the combo. So thank you to the 3 of you. That was amazing. We've got some great questions coming into the Q&A. Please feel free to keep chucking them on in there. One of the questions Rachel has asked, does Susie do motivational talks? I think you shouldn't. I think you should charge thousands of dollars, Susie. Yes, and Shane has said in the chat, we've got another slogan for the merch, you are enough. Every week on Rant Academy, we seem to be adding something new to the upcoming Improv Theatre Sydney merchandise line. So, fantastic. How do you feel, Susie, after getting that off your chest?
I'm about a bottle into a case of Pinot Noir, and I feel great.
Another great lesson for life and improv. If you have some Pinot handy, that can be fantastic. All right. So we've got a whole bunch of amazing questions. So we're going to jump in. One thing that I love is that this kind of theme came through tonight of showing up for the show, for yourself, for your craft, which I think is something we don't remind ourselves about often enough. And I love that as a takeaway tonight from all 3 of you. That's been such a nice overlapping theme, because I think the reason we all got into improv is because it's fun, and we're all big kids who like pretending and playing, but then along the line somewhere we all got in our heads about it, right? Which is, it happens to all of us, and it happens in lots of different art forms. But yeah, so I loved that line, Patti, when you said before, flow charts for pretending. If you go on to, so many blogs and Reddit threads about improv games, there's so many rules that come up, and it can be amazing when you're trying to design workshops, but it can also be really overwhelming. So I thought we'd start with this. I want to know if there's one rule that you've been taught, or as Patti said, maybe told, one rule, whether it's about improv or stagecraft and theatre in general, that is something that you wish or have worked to undo for yourself. There's something that maybe you've taken for granted all this time as a rule, but now you're not sure. Amanda, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, and I think, Patti, this will really work in well with experiences you've had as a teacher, in particular across the world. I think actually the very first time I saw and played with Bridie Connell, it was at Manning Bar. And it was an amazing lineup of people. We were doing a midweek show, and it got kind of halfway through the show, and we realized that actually so many scenes were just like these weird domestic violence scenes. Like, just do you remember that? Like, it was just weird. It was like, and it was because we were all saying yes. We kept saying yes, but we were saying literal yeses. And there was just that moment we all had to stop. And I remember it was Ben Jenkins in the wings went, guys, we really have to say no. And it was just that reminder that, and this plays into what Susie said, if I'm listening, I can say, no, I'm not standing for that. And we just, I think it was just that has happened countless times to countless improvisers across countless shows and countless jams, where we have to just remember, I can say no to this if I don't like it. Because if I'm listening, I'm saying yes. So I'm not saying no to, I'm saying no to what you're giving me. We don't have to put up with certain behaviors on stage, I think is what I'm saying. And I wish I could go back many, many times where I've been in a compromising scene or a scene that made me feel uncomfortable or anything like that, and simply be the human that's calling it out. My character can call shit out. My character can call out sexism, racism, discrimination, a million things. But I felt like I had to play along with it. But no, I don't have to. You know what I mean? I think I wish I had have known earlier that saying no as a character doesn't mean I'm saying no to the improv, if that makes sense.
That makes total sense. I wish I'd known that a long time ago as well. I think it's actually a very liberating piece of information to tell yourself, to give yourself permission. And I definitely make sure when I'm teaching that I encourage my students to say yes if it's the right thing to say yes to, and to say no if it's the right thing to say no to. And a lot of the time, especially high school students who've been taught yes and yes and yes and, it actually takes there's so much resistance to that idea, but it's really important. Amanda, that was so well said. Patti, is there a rule in particular that you have worked to undo in your own play?
Well, first, it's a fallacy that there's rules in improv. Not every theater company uses rules. Not every school of thought around improvisation uses rules. Only some do. So if you've been taught the rules of improvisation, those rules are taught by that group. I was never taught yes and. Yes and did not enter my life until I started touring internationally. And then I was like, why are all these people acting like bizarre creatures where they're going, yes, and, yes, and. I was like, what the hell is that? I was taught accept, which means I can accept your offer in 1,000 different ways. But the interesting thing is yes, and is a codification. Spolin talked about accept and augment. Dell was talking about accept the premise. Yes, and was a codification that started at the committee, the Compass Players, that Dell started using, that just became the easy thing to say, the popular thing to say. It summarized it, but now it's completely misinterpreted. You don't say yes. Yes means you accept. But you can accept by blocking. You can accept by saying no. You can accept by fighting back. You can accept by walking off stage. You can accept by ending the scene and changing it. You can accept by going new choice. There's 1,000 ways to accept. So saying yes is a misinterpretation. And the and meaning add more information, well, that's why so many scenes end up being this avalanche of ideas, because nobody has actually accepted the first idea. Everybody just keeps adding things on. So you get this house of cards that just falls over, right? Accept and augment. Hear that. Accept your idea and make it more. Don't just trash it with another clever idea. Make that something. Right?
It is harder to put on a tattoo, though.
Yes, or a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
But I love it.
I have a keep cup with yes and, which will not fit the beautiful things that you just said. But I think it's a good reminder that just because something is pithy does not mean it's right.
And we can have pithy, we can have short, we can have great slogans. But when the slogans start changing our craft because of the misinterpretation, I mean, I have seen women in tears because someone has said something on stage that they have to yes and
Yeah.
suddenly they're on all fours setting themselves up for something that I'm not going to say here because it's really super unpleasant, and they feel that they have to because they were taught yes and. And what? Why did the person make the offer in the first place, and why do they feel that? So there are no rules. There are techniques, there are tools, there are ideas. If you've got a rule, look at what it offers and what it obstructs, because rules obstruct other options. Now, there might be something really valuable in the original idea. Take that. Don't ask questions. Why not? Like, why? We ask questions all the time. It's bullshit to say don't ask questions. Just understand how questions work in a scene and how they can advance the story or inspire another improviser. So
I love that.
yeah.
Thank you. That was a beautiful answer. I think for something that is so much of the core of what we do, or at least what we're told is what the core, I think it's really important that we question that. Kieran's put, I think has articulated it really well here. Sometimes a yes to your scene partner is a no to yourself. I think that's a really nice thought as well, Kieran. Thanks for sharing that. It's important, we've got to empower ourselves as performers. I don't think you can improvise well if you don't have trust around you in the space. And so sometimes saying yes to those offers makes you feel unsafe. The trust is gone. The potential for good improv is gone. Susie, are there any rules or lessons that you would like to unlearn or have tried to unlearn?
I was going to say, ask questions. You're allowed to ask questions. People ask questions in life. So thank you, Patti, for bringing that up. Another rule, maybe like a show rule as opposed to an improv rule that I would love to unlearn. And it's something that really tripped me up very early on as an improviser, was doing feedback after a show. That a lot of people do feedback after a show. I don't, if you want to do it, I don't think it's very helpful. I think that scene has passed. I almost have a scene amnesia. So I remember very few of the scenes that I have ever done. And I think that's kind of a good thing, or it can be a good thing. If you want to do feedback after a show, go for it. But I think once you find the people that you really love performing with and you feel safe in that troupe, maybe set up your aims for the show, like say, this is what we want to do. And then afterwards, have a fucking drink and don't berate yourself for choices that you've made. It was improvised. It's fine. It's over and it's done. If you want to learn something, go home and do that learning, like by journaling or talk to a trusted friend. But I think standing around after a show or after a class and relearning what you think you should do by chatting and pulling apart scenes is fucked.
I love that. I think that's great. I think it's also, we forget as well, improv, it's ephemeral. That's the beauty of it, like we do a scene, it's gone forever. If it was the best scene in the world, sorry, you had to be there. If it was the worst scene in the world, don't worry. Only a few people saw it. No one else will see it. Like, it's actually really freeing when you think about it, but we get so bogged down in how to be better and what we can do, which takes us, oh, sorry, Patti, go for it. Jump in.
I love what you said, Susie, but I'm the complete opposite. I really love to have the notes after a show, but I want notes that are constructive, that are about the technical, that did we meet our creative aims? And if not, why? Were we in the light? Could we be heard? Was there something that happened that I destroyed a scene and I didn't realize it because I wasn't listening? For me, getting that outside eye feedback gives me a perspective that I don't have in the scene.
Yeah.
However, giving notes is a skill. It's not a chance for people to go, this is what I would have preferred, and my funny joke would be better, and I wish this had happened. It's not about your clever brain. It's about getting to the nuts and bolts so that I've got something that I can think about and take away. You might be right, you might be wrong. I can make that decision, but I really like to get that feedback. But I hate the standing around where it's about what someone thought we should do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That doesn't work for me.
Agreed. I think that's and like Susie said, we want constructive notes, like you said, Patti and Susie. I think that's so true, that sometimes we walk away berating ourselves for things we didn't do, and that's a really helpful energy to finish a show on.
Absolutely.
Amanda, coming to you for some show up for the show stagecraft questions. We've got a couple of questions which are around how we can encourage especially non-actors to understand some of these practices. So Anna has asked, should companies teach stagecraft and show up skills, especially for the non-actors? I think that's a great question. I'm interested to know what you think, knowing that improv seems to beginners like sometimes less frightening than being on stage under a spotlight. How can we
Look, I think we should be very gently putting it into the way we introduce improv. So there's exercises for beginners, and that would be terrible to immediately go, you're going to be on stage, you're going to do a show. But let's face it, most of those beginner classes, we're going to ask them to do a grad show anyway. And then we're going to have them unprepared, standing on show, talking to the back over here and talking to their friends. And isn't that great? And, I think we need to encourage it early-ish if we have at the end of level 1 a show. If we don't have shows until they've gone through a level 1 or a level 2, then save it. Let them just get used to the idea of playing first. But whenever we start to expect that they're going to be in front of an audience, we need to give them, we need to set them up for success, surely. So I don't think it's a bad thing to introduce vocal warm-ups straight away, really, because we get them to shout and be crazy animals and birth out of an egg and be a frog and then climb a tree and blah-de-blah. We let them stretch their arms and legs, but I think a vocal warm-up's pretty important from the get-go, even if it's just a little mini one, breathing and maybe at the same time as a physical warm-up. But certainly if you're expecting anyone to get on stage at some point, I would really hope that they know at least where to stand, where to find your light. How many amazing shows are ruined by someone in the dark, and it's not just me in the audience, heckling. Find your light, give them a chance to really be amazing. And I know that there's I can only talk about when I started, but when I started, you were mainly actors, actually. You were mainly people who wanted to be performers. It wasn't a stand-up thing. Improv now seems to be a bit more like, I'm going to learn some improv so I can write some sketches and get myself on some telly. That wasn't how it was when it was part of theatre. It was an extension. It was another form of theatre of which we, had a lot of people with a background in performance already. Strangely, I think it was because I was theatre trained that I stood out. I just knew how to stand and be heard. So that gave me two things above my classmates that made me stand out. So yeah, I think we should be introducing it. I think it's selling the craft short by removing the whole theatre part of it. And I think it's a real shame that we don't just tell someone to. And please do not tell someone during a scene with a broom to play forward. If you come on with a broom, then I'm turning to you and I'm saying, what are you doing, cleaner man? That's an offer. Don't do that to get me to stand forward. Grab my arm, walk me towards the center of the stage, into the front, and continue the scene there. But we need to be doing that early. We need to be doing that in classes. If we're getting two people up, come forward, come closer. Get them used to being near the audience straight away. I'm so sick and tired of these great big stages where you can't see anyone because they're leaning against the curtains. Audiences flip and love it. If you can stand at the front of the stage, really close to the audience, they already say, she knows what she's doing, I'm here. Tell the audience that they're in for a good time straight away. Anyway, that's too much. I answered that question too long. Sorry.
No, you answered it passionately, which is what we're all about. I loved it. I think that's a really great answer. And stagecraft can feel, I sometimes feel when I'm teaching, like I'm nagging my students to be like, no, don't look at the ground. Stand up straight. I need to hear you. But maybe I'm nagging. I don't really care. You got to eat your broccoli to be good and strong. And if you want to do a good show, you got to learn these things. So I really appreciated that answer. Okay, so we've got a question for Patti from Alistair. isn't systemization an art form maturing, and having a system helps performers perform together and understand each other? So he's used your beautiful musical analogy before transitioning from pop to punk, and he said jazz, classical, and pop are very different systems with overlapping but training systems and philosophies. So going off that, what are your thoughts, Patti? Is it the sign of maturity, or is it just getting us two in our heads? What do you think?
I think it depends on how you're using the word structure. So if you're looking at a musical, then there are structures, because musical theater has structures, music has structures. And so the improvisers have to understand that information and what those structures are.
Mm-hmm.
But if you say, we're going to do a musical show and every song is going to have this structure, then it's become a system.
Yeah.
And that system is something that you're learning so that you can replicate. And you want something you could replicate because it works. And if you want something that replicates that it works, then you're looking for safety and control. Improvisation is not about safety and control. Yeah, chaos, organic, free association. There's nothing in that that's about safety and control. It's all about finding the other edges. And we have to remember, what Viola and what Del and what Keith were teaching and working towards and pushing students towards. It was all new, and anytime they discovered something, it's like, what else could we discover? So the systems I'm talking about are the ones that people are trying to condense it into something that works, that's repeatable, that's actionable, that you just keep repeating this and it will get you to a consistent end outcome. We shouldn't know the end outcome. It's improvisation. We should know what's happening next. What we do is we learn our skills. We have our tools. We build trust and communication. And as Susie said beautifully, we come to listen, we step into the unknown and create.
Is the problem profitability though, Patti, do you think?
Of course.
It's repeatable and therefore profitable.
And that's why I use punk and pop, because early punk didn't give us a rat's ass about being profitable. They had something to say, and they were going to say it, right? They were there pushing back against what society was saying. It was in reaction to something. Well, so is improvisation. For Keith to get improvisation on stage in London, at that time, they still had censorship.
Wow.
So he had to call it a class, because they wouldn't censor a class. The Lord Chamberlain didn't have to review a class, because you could do a class on stage. But if you did a show in improvisation and he said, what are the themes? And Keith couldn't tell him, they wouldn't have allowed it on stage. So even in that act, you've got people pushing against. Look at Del, what Del was exploring, and if you do any research on these individuals and where they came out of and what they were pushing towards, it was a voice breaking down walls. Viola was breaking down walls of, what was going on in the education system, and a lot of her work came from Neva Boyd, so it was in response and reaction. And now improvisers, their only game is to get it right, to do it well, and for them to be good. There's no craft underneath that. Now, I have no problem with people playing improvisation because they just enjoy it and they just want to do it. Great. Then don't charge an audience. Have your fun times. Yeah? Have an audience come, just don't charge them. Yeah. Say it's open house. Do your deal. Wear your board shorts, right? Like whatever. But if you're going on stage and you're creating a show, why? Why are you there? And why is the audience there? And if you're not asking those questions, then why are you doing it?
No, great. I love that. I think that, as we kept saying, throughout this whole thing, this theme of showing up, whether it's for yourself or for your craft or for your audience, who, even if they haven't given up money, have given up time. That's payment of, that's huge investment. And it all really boils down to a matter of respect. So I really enjoy those questions, it makes me feel like when we are allowed to get back on stage and into workshop rooms to rehearse together, I'm so excited and fired up. Patti,
I just noticed that Kale made a comment about the Comedy Store players. Yes, absolutely. They've been playing for years with the same people doing the same games and the same exercises until 4 years ago, where they started opening it up and bringing in guest performers like Pippa Evans and Ruth Bratt and people from other improv shows who come in and they don't know the routines. They don't know the gimmicks. They don't know the repeat callbacks. And they're loving it. Because it's reawakening the spirit. Now, sometimes it's a bit awkward because it is a product. And to be fair, the people in the Comedy Store have a lot of pressure on them as well because of television, because of their reputations and so forth. But if you ask yourself, what are we doing? We're doing a product. Why are we doing it? Because we want to be successful. Great, you've answered that. Do what you need to do that.
Yeah.
Right? But people aren't asking those questions. They're just following systems because a company is making money. Because if I've got a system and I tell you how to do it, I can control your thought.
Actually, it's fine for me because I actually got into improv for the money. Big corporate fat cat over here. So I'm all about learning to control it and commodify it. Here's a question that Steve's asked that I'd like to throw to everyone, starting with you, Suze. I love this question. Have you always stayed in love with improvisation? Like a lot of art forms, our relationship to it changes over time. So I just wanted to know from the three of you, have you always loved it or no? Suze?
No, I have not always loved it. I remain mystified by it, and I think that that's a good thing. I never quite know why something works, even when it does work. And I think I know the theory of it. I don't quite know how it works. And I have gone through long periods where I haven't improvised out of fear. So that's why I did say in my rant, I'm writing this mostly for myself because it still scares me very much. I can still be humiliated, and I can still be unsure of the people I'm performing with. And we've all had experiences where we've felt unsafe on stage. And I think especially as women, there has been a revolution of late where we're like, I'm not actually going to put up with that anymore. And sometimes it takes a circuit breaker to do that, and to specifically stop playing with certain people or with certain companies or any of that. And I've definitely made strong, deliberate choices when I have felt that, which I'm glad that I've done. But at its core, I love the philosophy of improv, and teachers like Jill and Lindsay Haley and Jason Chin and Cale Bain and Patti Stiles and Amanda Buckley, the teachers that I've had have made me fall in love with improv again and again. But I've definitely gone through periods where I have absolutely hated it. And I think that when you do, you should find another avenue for your creativity and know that you can come back whenever you want to. There's no door that you walk through and you can't get back.
I love that. That's a good reminder. Thank you for being so candid. I think we often don't admit to things like that. We're supposed to love it and be on the whole time. Amanda, what about you? Have you always loved it?
I have, but I've struggled with it. It's been one of those relationships that's like, I can't quit you kind of relationships, because it doesn't always love you back, is the problem. And I'm an older woman in terms of, I'm an older woman in terms of the people that we perform with these days. I've also been a bigger person most of my life. And improv for me has been freedom. I can be anything I want to be. So I've always really loved the freedom of improv, and that's what made me fall in love with it. It's not what's made me stay in love with it. But the thing I've had to come to terms with, this is where the relationship got hard, is, and there are thousands of the most exquisite performers that you will never meet and never hear of because they will never make it. It's not a jump off point for me. It's not a thing that I did to become something else. It was when I trained. When I trained as an improviser, it was to get better at auditioning, but I fell in love with improv and I never really strayed from it. From 2000 onwards, I've been an improviser. And I think A couple of years ago, I came to terms with the fact, and this is weird, I had to come to terms with the fact that I'm a career improviser. I'm not a stand-up. I'm not a sketch person. I'm not looking at it to be the springboard into some sort of career somewhere else. I'm an improviser. There's almost no money in it, but those improviser skills have, but I earn money as an improviser. I do corporate work, I do voiceover work, I do training, I do facilitation. There's a whole heap of things that I do that actually, once I stop thinking about, why doesn't anyone know my name? Why do I have to keep explaining that that's my joke? That's my bit. When I realized that, no, I'm actually living it every day, that's been an incredible lesson for me. And that's where you struggle with it, because it doesn't love you back. It's sometimes it feels quite thankless, because you did the killer fucking best show ever. I have belted notes that dogs have only been able to hear, and 3 people in the audience. But, like, I have to just make peace with that again and again and again and again. So it's an up and down relationship, but it also got my boyfriend and my baby. So that happened because of improv.
That was beautiful, Amanda. Thank you. That was a really beautiful description of your relationship with improv. It's one of those things that changes so much as we evolve. How could our relationship to our art not evolve? And Patti, what is your response to this question? Have you always stayed in love with improv?
I think I've always been in love with improv because I'm in love with its possibility, its magic, its wonder, the moments. It's so alluring. It's so tempting. I've always been in love with. All the shit around it, no. So I go through stages where I just get so angry that the form is stuck. And it is stuck. I mean, really, there hasn't been great evolutions in how to improvise. There's been a lot of dressing up of theories. There's been a lot of retweaking and reforming. But a real wave of a new. And I'm desperate for that. I feel like I'm on a surfboard in the middle of a puddle waiting for this thing. So sometimes I get frustrated in that, and then I go, okay, well, what am I doing on my little surfboard? Okay, make some waves, try something. Sometimes I get sad. I feel out of sync with other people. Out of sync with work that some people want to do and the voice that I want to have and the work I'm used to doing. So sometimes I feel disconnected. And then it just takes one moment, one scene, one spark, and it's there again. Sometimes I get frustrated with the corporatization, not doing corporate work, but the corporatization of improvisation and how that's squeezing the blood out of the heart. And I worry, will that magic, that beauty, that possibility, that openness, that wonder, that play, that pure spontaneity, that magical thing, will that get stifled? And then I get protective and thank people like you for creating rants where we can actually speak out and put those questions on the table and call improvisers to think and evaluate. And if we're going to be the keepers of this form, then come on, get your boots on, let's do something.
Yeah, we're going to take it seriously.
Yeah,
I love that. Thank you, Patti. I do have to say, over the last 4 weeks now of listening to wonderful improvisers share all their passions and theories and tantrums with us, it has been the first time that I've really, really thought about this art form, which has just been this fun thing that I do sometimes. And it's been really delightful and challenging and confronting for some of the topics. Have really made me question a lot of things that I've taken as gospel. So I think that's great I like that I'm being challenged, and I want to thank all three of you for being so articulate and generous with your insights today. And thanks to everybody as well with your beautiful comments in the chat. I love everyone weighing in with such great thoughts. It's really fantastic to see. So thank you. Now, before we go, because we've gone a little bit over, and I genuinely could just interview you all for hours because I'm so fascinated by what you all have to say.
No, I was going to ask Susie if she wanted to open a second bottle, and
Yeah. Is anybody going anywhere?
Liam, I'm almost empty.
Yeah.
He's somewhere in the house listening.
But before we do go, Patti, can you tell us where we can find your book? I know someone pasted a link, but can you please tell us about it so we can all get our mitts on a copy?
I want to show you the book, not because it's the book, but because Liam Amor did the cover design.
You're getting talked about, Liam.
Look at that.
Amazing.
He's done absolutely an outstanding job on the
Gorge.
book. Yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous. So like COVID's been hard for everyone. So if you have a local bookstore, give them a call. Ask them to order it. They can. It's got a proper ISBN number, so they can find it. And it's print on demand, so they'll be able to order it in for you. If bookstores are not your deal, you can do online retailers. You can Google it. Go down the hole of the evil Amazon. That sounded really weird, but excuse me.
Jono,
yeah.
that's a joke Jono would make.
So it is available online as well.
Thank you. I'm so excited for everybody to have a chance to read. She's gone.
We lost it.
We did
Trying
it.
to get it.
She
Another
lives in
bottle.
the same house as
Is she
me.
going to get next to you? Is she going to come in and sit next to you?
Theatre. We're not breaking a COVID rule, we promise. We just happen to live in the same house. Do you have anything that you would like to plug?
Patti has written a really great book. Oh no, but we should plug Liam Amor for all of your improv and design needs.
Yeah, amazing.
Amanda,
when
what
he's
about you? Anything that you would like to share with the crowd?
no COVID has sometimes you can follow me on Instagram. Sometimes I sew things. That's about it.
That's great. Put your handle in the chat. Hey everyone, this was originally going to be our last Rant Academy, but because there's popular demand and we're in a lockdown and have nowhere to go, we're going to keep them coming. So I'm really excited. We've got some amazing speakers coming up in the next few weeks. Next week, we have another international guest, which is very exciting. And one of the directors of Improv Theatre Sydney is going to chat to us. We've got some spicy takes. We've got some gentle, life-affirming lessons coming up in the next few weeks. And spoiler alert, me, Bridie Connell, I'm going to rant in a couple of weeks as well. I have some opinions and I will share them. It sounds threatening. I didn't mean it to be. Yes. So thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you Improv Theatre Sydney for letting me do this thing. And Amanda, Patti and Susie, thank you so much again for your beautiful thoughts. Thank you for watching everybody. See you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.